Here we are at the Cumberland Gap along Highway 58 just south of the Gap. And we're going to be taking an auto tour through Bell County, Kentucky and a little bit of Lee County, Virginia. Incidentally, this is the best view of the Gap on the south side along Highway 58. You can actually see Boone Trace along the side of the mountain. It goes right through that little notch. So what is Boone Trace? It is the first road or trail that enters into the land that was to become Kentucky, used by Daniel Boone and his trailblazers in April of 1775. After it was opened, hundreds of thousands of settlers poured right through that gap and began the westward movement. We added this location into the Bell County Boone Trace Auto Tour because it is where the settlers gathered before setting off through the gap into the wilderness one last time, possibly to never return again. As they approached the White Rocks, they knew that they were getting close to the gap. The mountains appear formidable. You can imagine their excitement, anticipation, and apprehension of their new life. And here at the Wilderness Road State Park, there are some excellent reenactors that can give you some good information about the pioneer days and what went on here. Be sure to plan to spend some time here. We're now on the south side of the Gap in what's called the Danuboon Visitor and Information Center, just off Highway 58. It has some good maps, animals, and artistic renderings of Native Americans and pioneers and animal sounds. And most importantly, back there is the actual Boone Trace. Now we're going through the tunnel on 25 East into Middlesboro. Be sure to stay in your lane. Interestingly, Middlesboro was built in 1890 in the middle of a crater caused by an asteroid strike 300 million years ago. Remember, Boone Trace came through here in 1775 when it was just a low area here. Now we're at the Cumberland Gap Visitor Center. This is a great place to get a map or get some basic information about the park. Be sure to check out the mural at the top floor. Now we're at the Pinnacles Overlook, where Boone Trace can be viewed from above. It's a spectacular spot where you can see 3 states, Virginia and Tennessee on this side, and Kentucky on this side. The trace can be seen coming from Martin Station, hugging the mountain, and through Cumberland Gap. All right, folks, we're now in a segment of Boone Trace known as the Saddle of the Gap. We're right here in the low point of Cumberland Gap. Right along this trail right here, literally hundreds of thousands of our pioneer ancestors passed right through here. Imagine their fears and their anxieties and their worries about settling in a new land. They brought literally everything they had with them here to settle. The thing about this particular spot along Boone Trace is a lot of people that visit here say that it's a very spiritual spot. If you just sit and listen and be real quiet, you can almost see their faces. You can almost hear their voices. You can hear the clink of the metal. And they passed right there along Boone Trace. After we leave the park, we rejoin the trace in the town of Middlesboro. The trace basically followed Yellow Creek through Middlesboro, and the auto tour turns down Cumberland Avenue to 15th Street. To Asbury, to 19th Street, where you'll find the oldest house in Middlesboro, which was on the trace and serves as a marker of Boone Trace. It follows Hurst Road and connects up with Old Pineville Pike, which was most likely the actual route of Boone Trace, which later became the Wilderness Road in 1796. Notice the road, the creek, and the railroad are all together here. Boone Trace then turns north up 25 East by Rocky Face. the ridgeline so named by Daniel Boone on the east side of 25 East. The trace is pretty much paved over by 25 East, but efforts are being made to create a hiking trail over Log Mountain on the west side of the road. Near Pineville, there is a second gap called the Narrows, which is a water gap where the Cumberland River cuts through the mountain. You can see the Narrows coming down the mountain right where that tree is sticking up. We're now at Cumberland Ford in modern-day Pineville, Kentucky, where Boone Trace crossed the Cumberland River from the west to the east. We're now looking north on the bridge, and there's a famous rock near the left bank here called the Watch Rock. If it could be seen, then travelers could ford the river. If not, like today, it meant the water was too high and they had to build a boat or wait until the water went down. Plans are being made to turn this area into a park, and this building called the Bunny Bread Building into a visitor center. This is the actual Boone Trace, leading north from the ford on the east side of the Cumberland River, and it leads on up to Flat Lake. This is 4 Mile Flat Lake Road, locally known as Ely Hollow Road. It's the actual Boone Trace paved over, following along the Cumberland River. We're finally at the Knox County line. We hope you've enjoyed your auto tour of Boone Trace through Bell County. We want you to learn the route, get in your car and drive it yourself, and learn all the fascinating points of interest and features along the way. To get further information about the driving tour through the county, visit Bell County Tourism Commission Building at 2215 Cumberland Avenue in Middlesboro, Kentucky, 40965. All right, we're now at the Knox County line at 4 Mile Flat Lake Road, better known as Ely Hollow Road. And we're taking you on an auto tour of Boone Trace through Knox County. As you know, Boone Trace came through the Cumberland Gap and was marked by Daniel Boone and his Trailblazers in 1775. It was the first road ever into this part of the world and was extremely important not only to the founding of Kentucky, but to the opening of the West. And it went right here up Ely Hollow Road. Following the Cumberland River to Flat Lake. We're now at the Danuboon Park in Flat Lake, Kentucky. Flat Lick was an important intersection because it is where the Warrior's Path, Boone Trace, and the Wilderness Road diverge going north and converge going south. You can see the street sign, which shows the Warrior's Path, which follows Stinking Creek. It will eventually connect with Highway 89 to an Indian village called Esquippacathicke near Winchester, Kentucky, and then eventually on to Chillicothe, Ohio. Also out the Warrior's Path Road, you eventually come to the actual lick known as Flat Lick. There apparently was a large lick here that the animals frequented, creating the trails that led there. We think this is the actual site. We're now on a segment of the actual trace that we call the Callahan Loop Trail. Now we're moving up the trail. We're pretty sure that this is the exact location that the Wilderness Road split off of Boone Trace. Boone Trace continues in this direction and the Wilderness Road split off to the right. Boone Trace headed up along Shy Mug Creek, and possibly over Shy Mug Mountain, or one of these hollows, and down Trace Branch Road, also called Fisher Cemetery Road, following Trace Branch Creek to Highway 11. It then switched over to Richland Creek. To drive this area, just take Highway 3439, right onto 3440, left onto Highway 11, and right onto 2418, which is also called Blue Gable Strait. Notice the Boone Trace looped around Barberville itself. We're back on 25 East again, basically following the Richland Creek. The trace crossed 25 East somewhere around here and proceeded down that lowland there. Turn off of US 25 East onto Emmanuel Loop Road, which follows the Poplar branch of Richland Creek. We're going to follow this road all the way to Highway 233 and the little community of Gray. From there, cross US 25 East and proceed north to the Laurel County line. We hope you've enjoyed your auto tour through Knox County. We want you to learn the route yourself, all the fascinating points of interest along the way, get in your car and drive it yourself. There is a free Avenza app for your cell phone, which can be obtained from the website and can really assist you. For more information about the driving tour of Boone Trace through Knox County, visit the Knox Historical Museum at 196 Daniel Boone Drive, Barberville, Kentucky 40906. The Barberville Knox County Visitor Center at 117 High Street, Barberville, Kentucky 40906. Okay, here we are on Boone Trace at the Laurel and Knox County line around Route 233 just north of the town of Gray. And we're going to take a driving tour of Boone Trace through Laurel County. What is Boone Trace? It is the first road or trail ever into Kentucky, blazed by Daniel Boone and his trailblazers in 1775, and it went right through here in Laurel County, Kentucky. It has been said that no other trail is of greater significance to the founding of Kentucky and the opening of the West. We'll be traveling up Route 233 to Robinson Creek Road to Echo Valley Road. This is Raccoon Springs, right there. It's on the backside of the property owned by Mr. Bill DeWeese. Cherry Hill is the road here, and probably the actual Boone Trace that's paved over. Raccoon Springs was an area that was very popular with early Kentucky long hunters because of its good water that was coming right out of the hillside, just like it is today. The spring got its nickname because either Daniel Boone or Henry Skaggs was getting a drink of water from the spring when a raccoon came out of the bushes and scared him to death. It was such a popular spot that Indians often laid ambush to attack early pioneers. Many souls have perished right here in this area. How moving is that? And this is the marker right here, put here in 1942 by the Laurel County Historical Society in 1942. 1942 is the 150th anniversary of Kentucky becoming a state in 1792. And this marker reads, Raccoon Spring, Long Hunter Station Camp, Boone Trace, 1775 to 1795, Wilderness Road, 1795 to 1865, and Kentucky, 1792 to 1942. From here the trace goes overland and no roads parallel it. So you have to zigzag through the area in a car. It enters the woods here off of Walnut Road. Another marker is on Slate Ridge Road near Boggs Road. And another on US 25 near Ferriston. Between Raccoon Springs and Happy Hollow Road is one of the best wooded segments of Boone Trace, near a large city, London. It can be entered near the Slate Ridge Bible Church. Our next stop is Levi Jackson Wilderness Road Park. We're now in the back of Levi Jackson Park, and this is an actual documented section of Boone Trace. There is a 1942 stone marker on one end and a DAR marker at the other end of the walking trail. Be sure to walk on this actual section of this historic trail. There was also a dreadful tragedy that happened here along Boone Trace. All but 3 members of the McNitt family were massacred by the Indians here in 1786, and most were buried in the cemetery located at the park. Another interesting thing about Levi Jackson Park, it is the only place where Boone Trace and the Wilderness Road are on the same property. This is an actual piece of the Wilderness Road along Route 229, and Boone Trace is in the back of the park. We're now moving out of town along Highway 638, McWhorter Road, and there are a couple of stone markers along the way. One is at the corner of Sandblack Road, sitting in this front yard. And another is along the side of the road near 3194 McWhorter Road. We're now heading up the road to the famous Hazel Patch along Highway 638 to Feltner Steer Road, where there's another stone marker at the intersection of Highway 30. There's a segment of the actual trail just across the road from the marker on the Oliver property. Then we'll turn up 1394 over to Highway 490 at Hazel Patch. We're now at Hazel Patch, along Route 490, where Daniel Boone and his men continued north, leaving Skaggs Trace, an old hunting trail. John Floyd and Benjamin Logan, about 1 month behind Boone, actually followed Skaggs Trace over to Crab Orchard, which was the genesis of the Wilderness Road, which came later in 1796. An interesting feature of Hazel Patch is the Woods Blockhouse, which is one of the earliest permanent buildings in the wilderness, built around 1793. It was like a small fortress out in the wilderness, where a person could escape the dangers of being out in the open from animals, Indians, and the cold. This marker is on the location of the Woods Blockhouse and is on the farm of Warney Joseph, next to Hazel Patch Creek. It can be seen across the creek on Murray Cemetery Road. At Hazel Patch, small game was plentiful, because they liked the hazelnuts which grew on the hazelnut trees in the area. Also, when ripe, they made a nice snack for the hunter, so this site was very popular. This is one of the DAR markers along Boone Trace. DAR stands for the Daughters of the American Revolution. The DAR put out 15 such markers along Boone Trace in 1915 to commemorate the trace. This is the one that's in front of Mount Carmel Church. It is in kind of bad shape, as you can see, but the state DAR is working to refurbish the Kentucky markers. You may have noticed that there are 3 different kinds of markers along Boone Trace. 1, the 1942 stone markers. 2, the DAR markers, like this one. 3, the Kentucky Historical Society markers. What's interesting about this particular monument is that there is a stone on the top of it with a D. Boone inscribed on it. Possibly Daniel himself did this. Down the road on Highway 490, another 1942 stone marker is located at the corner of Winding Blade Road. Close to the Rockcastle River, on Highway 490, the Sheltoe Trace, a man-made hiking trail in the Daniel Boone National Forest, crisscrosses and merges with Boone Trace from the southwest for a short distance and then follows Highway 89 into Jackson County. We finished our driving tour right here at the Rockcastle River at the county line. Boone forded the river at some point near here and camped. We hope you've enjoyed our Boone Trace auto tour through Laurel County, Kentucky. We would love you to get out, drive the tour on your own, learn the markers, and learn the fascinating stories for yourself. To get further information about a driving tour through the county, visit the Laurel County Tourism Center at 140 Faith Assembly Church Road, London, Kentucky 40741. Okay, we're now going to begin our auto tour of Boone Trace through Rockcastle County, right here on Highway 490 at the county line. Boone Trace, of course, was the first road ever into this part of the world and was hugely important not only to the founding of Kentucky, but the opening of the West. We hope you enjoy it. Of course, there was no bridge here in 1775. So Daniel Boone forded the river somewhere down there. And apparently camped in this area. The remains of John Stewart, his hunting partner in 1769, were supposedly also found in this area in the hollow of a tree. His initials J.S. were carved into the powder horn found with his remains. We follow Highway 490 here to Trace Branch Road, where Boone Trace goes up to the ridgeline. Unfortunately, the Kentucky Historical Society marker that was once here was damaged and is currently undergoing repairs. This is a photo of what should be standing here. Except for this road right here, there are no other roads in Rockcastle County that parallel the trace. So for the auto tour, we had to divert through the towns of Livingston and Mount Vernon and pick up the trace further up. All right, folks, now we're on a segment of Boone Trace on some private property here in Rockcastle County. And this is one of the places that many of the people say is a very spiritual spot because we know it's an actual segment of the trace that so many of our pioneer ancestors passed. And the thing about it is if you just be real quiet for just a little bit, you can almost hear the voices. You can almost see the faces. Maybe even the clink of the metal. And they went right here down Boone Trace. Livingston is an extraordinarily interesting town and important to Boone Trace because even though it is not on the trace, it gives access to the trace. They have a great visitor center, kayak access to the Rockcastle River, the ford where the original Wilderness Road crossed the Rockcastle River just south of town, and it is also the headquarters for the Sheltoe Trace. It is a designated Kentucky trail town. And has a monument that commemorates the Wilderness Road, Boone Trace, Skaggs Trace, and tribal trails. Skaggs Trace, which preceded Boone Trace, runs through near here. From Livingston, we follow US 25 here into Mount Vernon, which is also not on Boone Trace, but allows access to it. The Wilderness Road, which forded the Rockcastle River in Livingston, actually passed right through here in Mount Vernon on its way to Crab Orchard, so it's related to our project. It's a very interesting town in and of itself and very well worth visiting. It was named after Mount Vernon, the home of George Washington. A great place to start would be right here at the History Garden. You can also visit historic Renfrow Valley and the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame. From Mount Vernon, you get on the Old State Road near the town of Wildy, and it's a nice 20-minute drive along the actual Boone Trace. Okay, we're at the end of our auto tour of Boone Trace through Rockcastle County. It ends here at the Boone Gap Historic Site, which was the last of 5 gaps that Daniel Boone and his group had to cross into Kentucky. And it's right on the Rockcastle and Madison County line. Boone thought that the Kentucky Inner Bluegrass was paradise and where people needed to come. From here, they made it to the Kentucky River where they built Fort Boonesborough. Rockcastle County was quite mountainous, and there must have been great relief when they made it this far. This site is where the old 25 went around the mountain and has been made into a historic rest stop. A marker was placed here in 1915 by the Daughters of the American Revolution, commemorating the opening of Boone Trace in 1775. An actual segment of the original Boone Trace dirt trail is just behind the rock wall. We hope you've enjoyed your tour. We want you to learn the route, learn its features along the way, learn the story, and get out in your car and drive it. There is a free app called Avenza you can find on our website that can be downloaded onto your phone that will help a lot. For more information about the driving tour of Boone Trace through Rockcastle County, visit Mount Vernon Rockcastle Tourism, located in the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame building at 2590 Richmond Street, Mount Vernon, Kentucky 40456. Or the Rockcastle County Chamber of Commerce building at the corner of Main and Richmond Street in Mount Vernon. Today we're taking a driving tour of Boone Trace through Madison County, and we're starting at Boone Gap, which is right here on US 25 at the Madison and Rockcastle County line. Boone Trace was the first road ever to this part of the world, and it was blazed by Daniel Boone and his axmen in 1775, and that started the westward movement. It began the American spirit to dream a dream, seek it, achieve it, and triumph. It later evolved into a much bigger road, the Wilderness Road, but it all began with Boone Trace, and it ran right through here. Right now we're at Boone Gap. It was the last gap, like the Cumberland Gap, Moccasin Gap, and Cane Gap, which Daniel Boone and the men had to pass to get into the bluegrass region. And Daniel Boone and his men came right here, right up this very trail. And if you just stand right here quietly for 20 seconds or so, you can almost hear and even see the spirits of the pioneers coming right up through here on this trail. From here, they moved north along Slate Lick Road. into the Berea area along brushy Fort Creek. To the junction of Brushy Fork and Silver Creeks. You can stop by the DAR Boone Trace marker that's right out in front of Boone Tavern right here. It follows this trail to Blue Lick Road and Joe Lick Knob, which Boone used for navigation. Later, the trace turned up and followed Silver Creek. But earlier, from Joe Lick, the trace turned up 421 to Crooksville Road, following Hayes Fort Creek to join Hart's Fort Creek on the way to Twitty's Fort. An actual segment of Boone Trace is located on the farm of Don and Betsy Logan off Middlesboro Road, where a piece of a Spanish silver dollar called a 2-bit was found with the year 17 blank blank on a piece of the coin. Now we're at the location of Twitty's Fort, where Daniel Boone and the axmen were camped out in March of 1775. While they slept, in the wee hours of the morning, they were attacked by Native Americans. Twitty's slave Sam was killed instantaneously and actually fell into the fire. Twitty and Felix Walker were injured quite severely. The men built a small log fortification around them for protection, and this structure later became known as Twitty's Fort or Little Fort. Shortly later, Twitty died of his injuries, and he's buried right here alongside Sam. All right, now we're just a little bit up from Twitty's Fort on Route 421, and we're in front of the Boone Trace historic marker from North Carolina. And right here on this spot, right off the highway, pardon the noise that's behind us there, but there's a lot of history right here in this spot. Not only do we have the Daughters of the American Revolution monument right there behind us, but we also have an historic marker for Fort Estill that fits right into the story of Fort Boonesborough in early Kentucky. And then we have another historical marker that has all kinds of different historic sites right here in Madison County. You see that there's Cassius Clay's home, a birth of Kit Carson, and a number of other places that are there. And on the back side of this, we've got the historic marker for the Civil War Battle of Richmond that took place here in 1862. And it even has another historic marker here that's more relevant to the Civil War battle here in Richmond, Kentucky. The monument sits, as you can see, it's on a very busy road, 421 and 25. You see the fence line back there, that's the Bluegrass Army Depot where they store chemical weapons and things that are currently being destroyed. But it's a neat spot that's relevant to our story here of Boone Trace and definitely in Madison County. Now we'll move on to the next stop here on Boone Trace. From here, the trace followed Pumpkin Run Creek, probably along Pumpkin Run Road, to Otter Creek, and so now the trace in this location is under Lake Reba. Across 52, the trace follows Concord Road and Otter Creek toward Union City. Near 4 Mile Road, an actual segment of Boone Trace is located on the property of Billy Tudor. Be sure to stop here and view it. Look for the Boone Trace sign. In this location, the Otter Creek bank is actually lined with stone, indicating that this portion of the trace was really important. Otter Creek was forded near Red House. And emerges along Otter Creek onto Red House Road. From there, it follows Red House Road to Boonesborough, where the fort was built at the original fort site. Be sure to notice the Pioneer Cemetery on Red House Road near the railroad tracks. The Lyle House, the Hart House remains, and the Lyle Cemetery. The final terminus of Boone Trace is here at Sycamore Hollow, which is where the construction of Fort Boonesborough began. The final site was moved here to higher ground, which is where the permanent fort was built. A replica of Fort Boonesborough is built right here, right off of Route 627, about a half a mile from the original fort site. To get further information about the driving tour through Madison County, visit the Berea Visitor Center at Old Town Artisan Village off North Broadway, or at www.visitberea.com. Also, you can get information at the Richmond, Kentucky Tourism Center and the Clay Cloyd Salter House at 521 West Main Street, Richmond, Kentucky, or at www.visitrichmondky.com, and also at the Friends of Boone Trace website, www.boonetrace1775.com. Look for map number 1 on the website, which has to be read on a computer, and for map number 2, the Avenza app, which can be downloaded onto a mobile device. We hope you've enjoyed this driving tour through Madison County, all along the sites of Boone Trace. We hope that you get out, enjoy history all around you, and appreciate all that our pioneer ancestors went through.